Good evening. I'm Jane Preston Rose, a member of the Board of Trustees of the Portage Park District Foundation. It's my pleasure this evening to introduce the recipients of this year's Environmental Conservation Awards. Jeff St. Clair, congratulations on being selected the Kent Environmental Council's Edith Chase Award for Conservation.
Well, Jane Rose, thank you so much. I don't deserve it, but I'll take it.
You'll take it, yes.
Yeah, I am so honored to even be associated with Edith Chase, a hero, really,
Yes.
In environmental conservation here in Ohio and, really nationally.
Well, she trained you well because you've gone on, you're an award-winning science reporter, you've been with public radio for 20 plus years. Mm-hmm. I understand you had a series not too long ago about PFAS.
PFAS, that's PFAS, is a type of chemical. It stands for perfluoroalkyl substances. And there's not a lot of awareness of these chemicals, and that's one reason we did this. The problem is that these chemicals are so widespread, every person in America and probably in the world has some amount of this in their blood. That's how widespread this contamination is. They're primarily spread through this firefighting foam. It's the key ingredient for the foam that they spread on fires at airports and military bases and stuff like that. Entered the groundwater, and now currently around 1.5 million Ohioans drink water every day that contains PFAS. They're also in a lot of common household goods, like waterproofing sprays and makeup and fast food wrappers, and the list goes on. So we're exposed to these industrial chemicals on a widespread basis without any accountability from the industry. So that's where I started my reporting on this topic.
It's scary.
It is scary, and that's why information is the best antidote to fear and anxiety. They're not a benign environmental contaminant. These things do affect people's health, and there's virtually no regulation at this point. There is proposed regulation for these chemicals. They're looking at drinking water limits. The funny thing is that there is no safe limit. The EPA is so frustrated, they had to invent a new testing level for PFAS.
Yeah.
They're measuring them in parts per trillion, which has never been the case for any other contaminant.
Are you going to be able to report on some things we might be able to do about it?
There are things happening. There is awareness. The state and federal government are putting together framework or guidelines for regulating these chemicals. It's happening slowly, but it is happening. There's also some technologies that have been developed to deal with these forever chemicals. They don't break down in nature. That's one reason why they're so widespread. But they have developed some procedures, and that was recently announced to break down some of the excess firefighting foams that are laying around, stuff like that.
Well, we need people like you to continue to keep us informed about what they do and what we can do, and Edith Chase would be very proud of you.
Thank you. I really hope so.
She would
appreciate that.
Guy Gillespie, congratulations on being the recipient of this year's Environmental Award for Education. You have spent hours and hours volunteering your time to help do educational programs with the parks, particularly with astronomy. Tell me, what got you interested in astronomy in the first place?
They had classes after work in the steel mill. And they had a class for a telescope, so I built one. And first time I saw Saturn and Jupiter, I was hooked.
So what got you interested in volunteering and teaching?
I started with the parks because of the walks. And I went to the office, and she said something about, I asked her about setting up in the park. And she provided me with ways to do it.
So what kind of programs do you do for the parks?
I set up telescopes so they can look through. I have I have
Oh.
PowerPoint presentations,
Mm-hmm.
and then I do that, and then people can look through the scopes
Okay.
if I brought all the equipment.
So you teach them what they're going to see, and then they
And
actually get to see
May
it.
help them figure out what the constellations are.
Thank you so much for sharing your expertise with so many people who come to the parks for your program, and for encouraging a budding generation of
Hope,
astronomers.
but I'm hoping.
Yep. Cass McKay Walker,
That's right.
congratulations on your recognition as a green business in
Thank
Kent,
you.
Ohio.
Thank you very
You
much.
are the owner for 40 years now
Right.
of McKay Bricker Framing, and I understand from the very beginning that you've been a force in this community to develop Kent into the vibrant community it is today. Tell me a little bit about your business model and how you have focused on the environment throughout.
Well, I just sort of fell into the opportunity to own the business. I was working for some interior designers and learning a lot, and I got into conversation with Rick Charlotte, who owned the business back then, and he was looking to sell it because he wanted to spend more time with his young family. So one day I just woke up and thought, I could do that, and I don't know why I thought that, because I had never framed before. But I thought, well, I'm kind of good with people and good with my hands, and the business was kind of a simpler thing back then, mostly posters and metal frames, and so it was kind of, I gradually grew into something bigger. But I've enjoyed it very much, and I've always tried to support the community and give a little help here and there wherever I can. I've always recycled, even when I had to take it someplace myself for 40 years. And then we save mat board scraps for teachers and students. We have a big box, and they know they can just go root around in it.
Yeah, you have an art gallery that's right next to your business.
Yes, we have a KSU Downtown Gallery. They rent from us, and that's been a beautiful collaboration for probably 15 years or so. Yeah, and when they stay open for an event, we stay open with them, and it's been great.
Yeah.
And we also carry some postcards from the late Kathy Chapelier. Her husband Don wanted to keep she has images of Kent, and so we sell those and donate all the proceeds to Kent Social Services.
One thing I think you have done is develop the black squirrel as the unofficial mascot of the city and maybe even the college.
Well, I have to give my ex-husband Bob some credit for that one. When we were dating, we would walk on campus, and he was fascinated with the black squirrels. And he said, "You know, that's a local thing. You should do something with it in your business. It's just kind of as a symbol of Kent." And so it just took off from there.
Well, we certainly like having you here and all you're doing. I think that's marvelous.
Thank you.
So congratulations on this very well-deserved recognition of your business.
Very honored. Thank you.
Well, welcome, Joe Wright of Wright Family Farms, and congratulations on your very well-deserved Green Development Award. I understand that you have been farming, well, yourself since 2009, but your family's been in Shalersville for generations. How did it all come about?
So I grew up farming, and I still farm at the farm I grew up on at my parents' places where we're based out of. I was in 4-H. I had a small number of sheep, and mostly sheep and some goats as a child, and then I ended up selling all my animals when my wife went to school, and we moved down to Louisville for a few years, and then in 2009 we started back up with another flock of sheep, and since 2009 we've kind of been consistently growing the farm, adding pigs and steers, and then the last couple of years we've added meat chickens and egg layers as well.
I understand you use a pasture-based model of farming. What's that all about?
So all of our animals live out on pasture. There will be times when things are in. Our chickens our egg layers move to the greenhouse in the winter, and so they spend the winter in the greenhouse and around the greenhouse. But then during the growing season, our chickens are out on fresh grass and moved every day. The meat birds every day, the egg layers, once to twice a week to fresh grass. Our sheep are rotated through pastures so that they constantly have a more even plane of nutrition, a more nutrient-dense feed available to them, and they're moved daily on pasture.
Well, thank you for providing a role model for the farming community about how farming can be environmentally sound.
Well, thank you so much for nominating me and inviting me to be part of this.
Well, Don Sheldall, the founder of Northwater Brewery, congratulations on this recognition as a green business. I know.
Well, thank you very much. I really appreciate that. Yeah.
You know, here you took an old auto repair shop and turned it into a really nice place to visit and relax. Tell me a little bit, what does it mean to you to be green?
Well, you know, I started doing corporate site selection 40 years ago. I helped companies locate factories and offices around the world. But as I traveled around the world, I could see that communities that lent themselves more towards green and sustainable ideas tended to always be, they used to be better, or they were better places to invest. So, you know, come along here and 30, 40 years later, I hear I'm in Kent, I'm looking for a retirement project, and I thought, you know, I can do some good for this community by creating a business that's green and sustainable.
So what are some of the specific things that you have done to do that? I mean, obviously the building.
Yeah, well, that's good. That's a good point. It's about, you know, rejuvenating neighborhoods. So taking an old building like the old auto repair garage and fixing it up, and then now making it part of a revitalization of that corner of Kent. At the same time, sustainability involves society, you know, and helping the community to come together, you know, and that's what we've done there, is to try to create a gathering place and encourage people to come in and talk about issues. And then, of course, there's the environmental side, and you know, we recycle and we buy local. Buying local is a big part of what we do. We want to be part of this, making the community stronger, more prosperous, and more connected.
You certainly have, in so many ways, are building community. I'm thinking one of your Tap Talks once a month. It's always on some community issue. And of course, being right next to the hike and bike trail, you're
doesn't hurt.
building a community among hikers and bikers. You know, thank you, Don, for not only bringing new life to a building, but to our community.
Well, yeah, you're very welcome. It's been a terrific journey for me, and I've met so many great people, and I feel like I've found places where I can contribute. And Portage Parks.
Go Portage Parks.
Go Portage Parks, man. They're a great organization.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Russ Fletcher, congratulations on becoming the recipient of the Environmental Stewardship Award for, among many things, your 14+ years of taking care of 70+ miles of the Buckeye Trail as a volunteer.
I mean, I just received the Mogador section about 2 years ago, so I've done a lot of work on it, but I haven't actually.
I'd say
it wasn't just that one.
I'd say you've been a volunteer working on the trails for a long time.
Yes.
And doing a lot of good things.
I hope so.
Yeah. How did it happen that you became interested in the Buckeye Trail?
Well, my daughter you know, wanted to do something, and I was kind of unemployed back in '08. And, you know, I had some time, so we were looking at stuff, and I come across the thing at Quail Hollow, which was a state park at the time, that they were accepting volunteers, and they were looking for someone to feed their animals. So I said that to her and went in and went to one of their meetings and talked with the naturalist there. I can't think of her name now, but you know, we started that way. Then I noticed the blue blazes on the trees, and I knew of the Buckeye Trail. I just didn't realize it had kind of come through Quail Hollow, so I would do stuff there. And then I found the Buckeye Trail's website, and I talked to her about it, and we went to a couple of work parties and really enjoyed that, and that kind of started me off. Like one was down in Hawking Hills, and the other one was up at West Branch, which was like the first West Branch when they started all those years ago, putting in the new trail around the rest of the reservoir. So that's kind of how I got roped into this.
What are some of the most memorable parts about taking care of the trail? Have you had some interesting experiences or not so interesting experiences?
Well, some, you know, it's like when there's a group of us, it's pretty fun and a little camaraderie going on. And then we kind of get together and someone will have an idea, like maybe we should go over this way, or you know, change direction,
the trail.
Change the trail a little bit, or do a little other direction, or someone sees something and this is cool, let's see if we can add, you know, move the trail over to this and see this view or something. It's a very communal thing with the Buckeye Trail Association.
Well, it's wonderful. I mean, thank you for all you do to really provide a good hiking experience for so many people. I know it's a lot of work to keep trails up. Well, Sandy Engel, congratulations as the recipient of this year's Environmental Activism Award. What got you started with all this?
My dad was a horticulturist, and I remember even as a young kid, sales reps coming and saying, oh, there's no problem with the such and such malathion and Temix and all these other chemicals, and then you find out decades later that it did. And my mom had a mysterious illnesses, you know, throughout her life. They never even found out what it was. And we all questioned whether it could have been from chemicals. We'll never know. But I think that's what got me involved.
And so you've done a lot of work with students on it. Tell me a little bit more about what you've done with them.
So I could see the problems with technology when it first started coming out. And I realized the importance of really trying to get kids involved with nature. And there's so much research to support how it helps with cognitive skills, it helps to reduce anxiety, depression, you know, the effects of ADHD. There's been research on that, and I could go on. And so that's, whenever I could, I would give up my lunch hour and teach various programs for children that were often nature-based.
Well, tell me how your book came to be.
It was inspired by a friend of mine who is from Medina County. And she had fought for 3 years to stop a 75-acre gas and oil compressor station. And she came to a workshop I was teaching on turmeric. And I was just so touched by her story. And by the end of that, she was talking about her yard. And so I wrote about it. And it was about the family of foxes and everything. And that ended up being chapter 1.
I understand you had a program during COVID where you taught children how plants can communicate with us and how they can use that to help ease their emotions. Or tell me a little bit more about that.
Okay, for over 25, in fact almost 30 years now, I've been a flower essence practitioner, but each plant has its own unique gift to share. and they help with a wide range of emotional issues. And so I had the children just walk around, and whatever plant they were drawn to, I had them just sit there, and I gave them a packet of information so they could go through all these different exercises as to what the plant looked like. I had them use all their senses. If the plant was edible, they tasted it. If not, I told them, I said, you just touch it and smell it and, and listen. And then I'd have them draw or write poetry about it. And I taught them how to make a flower remedy, too, from it.
Well, Sandy, thank you for being such an outstanding model of ways we all can work to make our environment and our world a better place. Well, Virginia Shaw, congratulations on this Lifetime Achievement Award.
Well, thank you. It means a lot to me. I appreciate it.
Oh, it's very well deserved. How did your passion for the environment start?
Okay, well, I brought props.
Good, good. I like props.
This is what I should be wearing now rather than business casual. As a child, I was kind of an explorer. My parents gave me a long leash, and they gave me a watch when I was 5 years old and just said, be back in a half hour. And so I wandered a lot. And then we did a lot of traveling, especially to Shenandoah National Park. I didn't realize it then, but my dad had been there when it was first being developed as a park, when the WPA was building the cabins and the campgrounds and the other infrastructure. When I was 14, we were on a hike up Big Stony Mountain, and there was this very handsome 14-year-old boy there who became my husband years later. So hiking and the wilderness was associated with my family and also with my romance. And
one thing led to another.
Yeah, pretty much.
And you came to Kent, Ohio, where you were right in on the ground floor and starting the Park District and one of the first commissioners. What are you most proud of as being commissioner?
Oh, two things. One was recruiting and hiring Chris Craycroft, because she's the one that's made this institution grow. She was the right person, and it was the right time in her life too. She was ready for it.
Yeah.
And she worked with very few resources, but got it up and running.
Right.
And the other thing I'm proud of is getting that first couple miles of the hike and bike trail donated from Conrail. That was an accomplishment, getting that.
You and Doug, as I understand it, bought some acreage out
Oh, yeah.
with the intention eventually of donating it to the parks?
Well, my daughter Betsy found it.
Did she?
Yes, we had two horses at the time, which we were boarding, and she wasn't satisfied with owning the horses. She then wanted a farm, and we just said, look, you get the newspaper, you look in the classified section. If you find something, circle it in red and bring it to the dinner table. The next day, she comes with the newspaper, and she's found this ad for under 45 acres, wooded, steep slopes, Mahoning River branch, $180,000. And I thought, that's an astoundingly low price.
Oh.
So I called the number, it was a Cleveland number, and the guy said, lady, you don't want this land, it's useless. It's wild, it's rough, you can't build on it, little access. And I said, that's why we want it.
And that has become Shaw Woods.
Yes.
That you so generously donated it to the park system.
Well, and that was because Doug wanted no part of it. And I mean, the deal was we'd buy it as long as I promised to get rid of it.
Oh, I love that. What do you hope for the future of the parks?
Oh, to keep on growing and continue with, building a staff. The staff right now, I think, is very talented and committed. Like the programming, like the outreach.
Thank you, Ginny, for your commitment, not only to the environment in general, but to us in Portage County. You are a role model of someone who very humbly works hard behind the scenes to really create a wonderful environment for us. us all.
Well, thanks, Jane, but it was a privilege.
Well, that wraps up our presentation of this year's recipients of the Environmental Conservation Awards. Congratulations to all of them. What a fine group of people who are helping to preserve our environment for generations to come.